All right, today we're going to be talking about all of the planets in the 10th house in astrology, giving you the full meaning explained. First, we're going to be going through the physical manifestations of the 10th house and how each planet affects it. Then we go through the psychological manifestations. And when we're talking about the physical and the psychological manifestations of the 10th house and how the planets are affecting and modulating this part of your life, this area of life, which is what each house represents, we're going to be going through the light, creative, positive manifestations and the shadow, dark, destructive, unsustainable manifestations. So essentially, like when the each planet or each graha is operating in a healthy way or a pathological, dysfunctional way. Okay. And so as we talked about in the first 9 videos, because this is a series, it's a free course. So if you haven't seen the previous videos, go check them out. But we take each planet, which represents a certain set of archetypes, as I've thoroughly explained in all the other videos, and you take those archetypes and you put it in each area of life, and that planet lights up that area of life because each planet is a different piece of your consciousness or an archetypal framework or pattern of the collective unconscious that creates everything or is all parts of creation, okay? All parts of the universe, God, whatever you believe. We all believe in different things, right? Or the universe, right? If you're more secular, I don't judge. So we start with the sun, the first planet, which represents the king, the father, the leader, the masculine. And so when it comes to the physical manifestations of the 10th house, it represents the father, it represents your career, and it represents your status or recognition, the big things that you are known for in the public sphere. It could also be tied to fame as well, but most people are famous, so it's probably not going to apply to you in that way, but just something that you are known for, recognized for in the public space or by people who don't necessarily know you directly. We have the king, the father, the leader, the masculine in the house of the father, the career, and your status and recognition. It's also, the king house. It's a kingmaker house, the 10th house. That's why it can make people famous if you have a very powerful 10th house or 10th lord. So this is generally on its face in a vacuum, a very wonderful placement. It's the sun's favorite house. With this comes a natural ability when you have it manifesting in a light way, meaning the sun is doing well, the 10th lord is doing well, planets in the 10th house along with the sun are doing well as well. When you have this situation, you can have somebody who might have a very strong, authoritative father, but a father that comes in as noble, consistent, steadfast and firm, but in a healthy way, a good leader, a good king, which helps that person develop and become their own good leader, good king. Can have somebody achieve high, status or high positions in their career or in government or just in society in general, reaching high status, being a king in their field, having a kingdom that helps out a lot of people or affects a lot of people, because the 10th house, again, is the most visible house. 4th house is the most invisible. It's beneath you when you are born. That's the 10th house. Sorry, the 4th house is beneath you, the IC, and the MC, the 10th house, is at the top. It's the zenith. It's the high point, represented usually by 12 o'clock, right? So this means if you have the sun here, that means you're born around noon. Obviously, that depends on where you are, but around, 12 to 1 is usually when the sun, or 12 to 2 is when the sun is in the 12th house. So you're a midday baby, a day baby, and that can help somebody be more visible, be more extroverted, be more powerful in the public sphere. It's not a given, right? You have probability. Also, astrology is not deterministic fully. You have free will. There are variations and things that cannot be accounted for in the chart, but a lot of times this can bring somebody the ability to be a public figure, a leader, a true king, a power figure. Now, if the sun is afflicted or it's doing poorly because it has negative aspects, or like I said, the 10th house is not doing too well with other planets, or the 10th lord is in some bad shape, then you have somebody who might feel insecure in the public sphere or might have let's say, an egotistical approach to being seen or being in the public sphere. And so that can lead to a negative reputation or a loss of power or, an overly intense need to be recognized and seen, right? Also, when it comes to the sun is the planet of your destiny. and your archetypal figure. So your destiny is to do something in the public sphere, is to go out of your home and to take actions to manage your material life, because the 10th house is the opposite of the house of your home, right? This is your home. This is your work. You have your home where you sleep and your private life and your family and your intimate stuff going on in the 4th house that's hidden from the public sphere. And then you walk outside into the public sphere, and that's when you're doing your work. So your destiny involves a lot of public work, either government work or leading, or even being your own boss, or even just traveling and being out in the world, making your mark, doing big things that are visible to the public sphere. But again, if the sun is not doing too well, the shadow manifestation is, somebody who can become power hungry, somebody who can become egotistical, or somebody who's just insecure in the public sphere and they don't actually manifest their destiny because they don't feel like they have the strength of character, the consistency, the steadfastness that is required of somebody who's going to achieve status and power and recognition. Okay? Whew. So then we do the psychological aspects of the 10th house. It's an angle, it's an arctic angle, material action or material power. So it's that ability to achieve power, that inner power, let's say the drive, that powerhouse drive to achieve something in the material world, and authority. 10th house is the king house. It's the most visible house, the king on its throne. It's at the zenith, the top. So that internal authority, right? Or patriarchal aspect of one's psychology, because you have the matriarchal part, the 4th. Now you have the patriarchal, the 10th. Nurturing, caring, emotional, action-oriented, status, leadership, dominance. Okay? And these are just archetypal energies. Don't get too caught up in the fact of masculine, feminine. This is not sociological terms we're talking about. We're not talking about gender expression in this material human world. We're talking about universal principles, the law of gender based off of the Hermetic principles, and also you see it in the Vedic system. All religions, really, all spiritual practices, even paganism, even shamanistic cultures, you have the masculine and the feminine. Okay, so don't get caught up in being like, oh, sexist. It's like, no, this is archetypal, energetic patterns that span across all of creation. We see it in nature as well. So, like I said, so when the sun is here, when it's operating healthy, you have a consistent inner authority. You are consistently able to feel a drive to achieve your goals, to achieve material success, to move forward in the ways that you need to be doing. You are honorable in your authority. You're able to trust yourself. You feel confident in your authority. You're able to lead others because you're able to lead yourself. You can trust and rely on yourself, and so other people can trust and rely on you. Okay? And you have a healthy inner masculine, whether it's an animus, right? If you're a man or woman, either way, it's your animus. You have a healthy inner masculine that is powerful, steadfast, and your core identity is tied to your reputation, your ability to be recognized. And so the image that you project, the thing that people see in the public sphere who don't even interact with you necessarily, will align with how you feel internally in a healthy way. And one downside too of the sun, if we go more to the shadow aspect, is that because your core identity is going to be more visible to the average person, because the sun is in the most visible house and it represents your core identity and your destiny, when the sun's afflicted, that means more people are going to see it than, say, somebody who has, say, sun in the 4th house, which can be, they can have some character flaws, they can have some inconsistencies, they can have some power hungriness or egotisticalness. Those are words, but you know what I mean. They can have those things, but it's more hidden in the 4th house. But in the 10th house, those flaws are going to come through more coherently and vividly, right? It's like, being famous. If you make a mistake, more people are going to see you. And if you're a nobody, or if you're just an average person who's more private, more introverted, then you can get away with more shit, to put it mildly. You don't have to go too deep into it, but you get the point. So the shadow manifestation is somebody who cannot trust their own inner authority, or they have a tyrannical internal authority in the sense that they're too rigid. They think that, what they believe in that moment is how it goes, and they don't really listen to other people. They don't take other people's opinions into account, or they're constantly working, they're constantly having that drive, and they don't take time to actually nurture themselves and tap into their emotions. They're overly focused on the 10th house of doing and action and material success and achievement and power, and not nurturing, caring, emotional presence and self-awareness and integration, right? Integrating these material experiences. You integrate the material experiences and actually enjoy them and have an emotional connection to them in the 4th house. It's like you're the hungry ghost who's constantly consuming, constantly achieving. You don't get a second to stop and smell the roses. It's a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. Okay? And so an afflicted 10th An inflicted 10th house sun can be somebody who rarely stops and, takes a moment to smell the roses. Or if the sun, say, is like with Saturn or with Venus, you can have somebody who might feel inhibited and overly focused on other things that don't really align with their destiny. And so they're taking actions that they feel like they're meant to be taking. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're taking a lot of responsibility, 10th house, but it's not really emotionally fulfilling and it doesn't really feel right. And so they're not really focusing on themselves. They're too busy focusing on the external world of achievement. Okay? That is the sun in the 10th house. Now we have the moon. The moon has inherently a lot more trouble here because this is the queen, the mother, the child, the feminine. It's the receptive principle, the receptive part of one's consciousness and one's being. The sun and also Mars are the action, more extroverted, externalizing forces within your consciousness and your being, where the moon and Venus are the receptive, open, more emotional, feminine aspects of your consciousness and your being. And so when you take the moon, which naturally does best in the 4th house, where it's essentially most in its element, and you put it in the 10th house of action, hard work, career status, you have somebody whose emotional comfort and emotional well-being is tied to the power that they achieve, the status that they achieve, the recognition that they achieve, and to their career. You're supposed to go inside of yourself and heal yourself emotionally and rejuvenate away from your career, where somebody's looking for that satisfaction, that comfort, that presence, that peace in the fray. Now, this can make somebody feel comfortable in their work environment, and it can make them a very good worker because they feel, comfortable there because the moon's there, and wherever the moon is there, that's your comfort zone, as I've said in other videos. The moon is your comfort zone. So the moon in the 10th, somebody can feel comfortable in their work. They can get a lot of emotional fulfillment in their work. They can be very sociable and well-liked because the moon is a social planet, and a healthy moon, people usually like people with healthy moons. They're very open and magnetic in that way. Kind of like, how everyone likes a cute baby. Not saying that, a moon person in 10th is going to look like a baby or anything, but they're going to have an energy where a lot of people just are naturally in tune to that person, or that person will be able to be empathetic. So they're able to help other people or be empathetic and care for others in their career or in their public space, or do hard work and things for other people, or just be very social, be a socialite and gain a lot of popularity in general, just be a popular, well-liked person. The downside, if the moon is afflicted, is that you have somebody who, like I said, is emotionally dependent on being popular, emotionally dependent on being liked, needs to do well in their career to feel comfortable inside of themselves. They need to take actions outside to feel good inside. And so that can create a problem, is that your emotional internal space is reliant on the external space when it's supposed to be the opposite. You're supposed to heal and focus on your internal space first, because that is what's projected out into the external world. You understand? So the moon with some affliction can go negative and be very challenging very quickly and easily, because it's just in the 10th house where it doesn't have a lot of dig ball, it doesn't have a lot of natural directional strength. So somebody also might find themselves getting careers where they're focused on getting that social recognition, social approval, and what feels good in the moment emotionally, but not something that will actually be emotionally fulfilling over time. Or they're working and they're not really focusing on fulfilling their emotional needs and their needs for human connection, and just more for material achievement. Can be similar to the sun, but in a different way. Also can make somebody emotionally volatile within their career, and so they might not actually be as consistent and stable, right? So there can be many different things. It can manifest in many different ways, right? But that's the beauty of astrology, right? There's a lot of options and probabilities that consciousness can take in this material realm. From a psychological standpoint or point of view, you have inner authority. Inner authority is going to be your emotional body, and you're able to follow your intuition. You have an intuitive knack for guiding other people, leading other people. You have the ability to, nurture yourself and become an authority figure for yourself, in the sense that you become your own parental figure in a way. You might have had also, I forgot to mention too, with the physical manifestations, the father can be nurturing, can have some lunar qualities, can be more receptive, maybe even a little bit more feminine in nature relative to, a very masculine classic male if the sun is in the 10th house. But the moon, there's going to be more of that nurturing energy coming from the patriarchal figure, or the patriarchal figure is your mother. raised by a single mom or raised by a grandmother, or, you're raised by a woman or by your mother. And they play that patriarchal role in your life. But going back to the psychological manifestations, so then when you're working, same thing, your drive to succeed materially is driven from your emotional state. But this can very easily become a problem, is because, say you have a drive to achieve something materially, you want to take material action, but you don't feel like it. And so if you don't feel like it, you can't motivate yourself to do the work even when you're not supposed to. Or sorry, even when you are supposed to. Or you have a certain material responsibility, you need to manage your material life, the 10th house, and you're not feeling the vibe, or you can't stir up your emotions, or you're feeling, drained or burned out because you've been working so hard and your emotions haven't been getting taken care of because you've been focused too much on work. Burnout is most likely when you have Venus or the moon in the 10th house. And we'll get to Venus later on. But the moon there, burnout is a large risk because you are pushing yourself past your emotional threshold and not really focusing on rejuvenating and connecting with other people on an emotional level. So the moon can be difficult in the 10th. But other people are probably going to like you a lot. You most likely be popular. So at least you have that. And obviously what matters most too is the dignity of the moon and the quality, right? So it's not just going to be inherently negative or difficult or challenging just because you have the moon there. And it just won't be inherently good or beneficial just because you have the sun there, as I already told you about the shadow manifestations. Here we have Mars in the 10th house. We have the warrior, the general, the pioneer, the will in the 10th house of your career, father, and recognition, status, power, kind of trifecta jumbled up into one thing. And so with this, you have another great placement. Mars' favorite house is 10th house as well. It's very powerful. You have a power planet and a power house. Same with the sun. It's a power planet and a power house. Wherever Mars is where we're going to fight. We're going to exert our will. We're going to solve problems. We're going to train and get better and be disciplined in an effortful way, meaning we're going to train and exert energy. We're going to have the will to fight, and we're going to have courage and strength there, wherever Mars is. And we're going to have battles. But it's good to have battles out in the public sphere. This is why Mars can be more difficult in the 4th house, is because home, where you're relaxing, you're rejuvenating, you're being comfortable, you're with your loved ones, is the last place you want to be fighting battles. You want to be solving problems. You want to be solving problems and fighting battles out in the battlefield. The battlefield, best area is 10th house. That's where Mars can really shine, really has the most direction and strength and free reign to be himself. So the light manifestation can manifest quite easily depending on obviously the dignity and other things involved, like aspects, like I've said before. But the light manifestation, you'll have somebody who is able to work hard, exert their will, is also able to take breaks at the right time, because Mars is like the policeman or the firefighter, where there's a lot of downtime and then there's sharp spikes of action. So when Mars is in the 10th house, you have somebody who's able to exert their will towards the big things that actually matter, solve the big problems that actually matter, and really have that fire inside of them to achieve really almost anything they put their mind to, and solve the problems along the way, and be courageous and really put forth their best effort. And if they don't know how to do something, they're willing to train, they're willing to be disciplined, they're willing to fight for it. Okay? The shadow manifestation is somebody who might have conflicts in the workplace. I have a close family member and also former client, so two different people, that have Mars in the 10th house. They have conflict at work. Even though Mars is in its favorite house, there's some afflictions to it, specifically for Mercury. And so there is, for them, they feel like they're dealing with a lot of problems, or they're putting out a lot of fires at work, and where they have to, they're constantly worrying about not doing enough, not putting forth enough effort in their work. And so this can lead to a perfectionist attitude in their work, and also a workaholic mindset, because they think they need to exert more energy, because Mars is somewhat afflicted in both of these people's charts, but in different ways. One's Saturn, one's Mercury. And so that can be a manifestation. Or if Mars is weak for whatever reason, or is inhibited, well, then you have somebody who might not feel up to the challenge, might not feel that they're able to put forth that effort. There's too many problems in the workplace. There's too many problems to deal with in their material life. There's too many enemies they have to overcome in their work, right? So somebody with Mars afflicted can have a lot of enemies that they have to face in their work or in the public sphere or when achieving status or power. It's not going to be as smooth if you have an afflicted Mars than if you have a healthy Mars. They can overcome the obstacles, the enemies, the challenges like that, smooth. They put forth effort, but they get it done. If you have an afflicted Mars, the shadow manifestation, there's going to be a lot more effort they're going to have to put in. But because Mars is so strong in the 10th house, a lot of times that person will have the ability to overcome those obstacles in their way. Both people I mentioned, my client and my close family member, both are able to do it, though with a lot of stress and work and discipline and training and effort put forth. Psychologically speaking, you have, oh, and again, I keep forgetting the father. With the father, you could have a strong-willed father, a father who, maybe is a policeman, a firefighter, or in the army, military. You can have a father that's fiery, passionate. You can see how that can go sour, though. A father with a temper, or there can be somebody, a father who might be, physically, you get it, not right, and that's not the best. So you can have violence from your patriarchal figures, or you can have somebody who's a warrior, who's noble, and who puts forth efforts and fights and deals with the problems for the family and helps support you by solving problems, okay? When it goes to the psychological aspects, you have authority figures, or the inner authority. The inner authority has a lot of fire, has a lot of passion, has a lot of hunger for success, moving towards material achievement, material power, so that work ethic. Again, Mars is the warrior, so you're going to put forth a lot of effort. But Mars here also, when afflicted, the shadow manifestation, can be impulsive and might put forth effort at the wrong time or overexert oneself, and you can also lead to burnout. Again, I mean, the major thing you'll see with the 10th house when it's the shadow, when it's afflicted or when you have the shadow manifestations, is that the burnout is a large risk with 10th house planets. But the burnout will manifest differently depending on the planet, and it's less likely with planets like Mars, Jupiter, and Sun, and most likely with planets like the Moon and Venus. But in general, you can have burnout with Mars, but when you burn out, Mars in the 10th house usually has the ability, the capacity to take a step back, to rejuvenate, to take a load off, because Mars is able to take breaks and move slowly and then have those short bursts of intense action. And the final thing too, if Mars is not in the best shape, you might be fighting big battles, but ignoring the smaller battles or ignoring your home and just being out there in the battlefield fighting too much and not actually being able to enjoy the spoils of war. Whew. For Mercury, we have the scientist, the observer, the detective, the intellect. Describing the father, because I keep forgetting it, so I'm going to put it first. You can have a very intellectual father or patriarchal figure. These are intertwined, patriarchal figures in your life. You can have somebody who, might be a scientist, might have a detective mind, might be a good observer, might be able to, communicate well with you and the people around them, might be light, fun, and playful and play games. These are all mercurial things. Usually we'll have a youthful father or patriarchal figures in their life. When it comes to career, trying different things, likes to experiment, likes to follow their curiosities, their interests, and their hobbies, and to utilize their intellect and their thinking mind a lot. So somebody who might fall into more technical fields or skill fields or artisans, things like that. And when it comes to public recognition, usually you'll have a well-liked persona or well-liked public image, in the sense that Mercury's light, playful, variety, might be perceived as a jack of all trades, master of none type of individual, or somebody who is very skilled and has is very hyper skilled in maybe a particular one thing. Over time, they eventually focused on one thing if Mercury is doing well, and people know them for that. They're recognized for that. They also get status and achievement and all those things because they're very skilled at certain things, or because they're able to learn things that are needed to achieve that success. But Mercury too is also really good in the 10th because you're able to manage your material life. A lot of planets do well in the 10th house naturally. It's a very powerful house. So planets that are naturally placed in the first house and the 10th house are going to inherently have extra oomph to it, extra power to it, and are going to manifest more concretely and naturally in the ways that they want. Even Venus and the Moon to a certain degree. right? Just a little bit with a little bit more difficulty and friction, depending on the afflictions and the dignity. When it comes to the psychological manifestations, authority figure. So when you follow your inner authority, it's going to be an intellectual authority. You might lead and be, the king of your world, using your intellect, trying out things, experimenting, trial and error is all about Mercury, observing things, trying to be objective, analytically objective as possible. When afflicted, I forgot the shadow manifestation for the physical manifestation. So if you go back, the shadow manifestations for the physical 10th house is maybe a father figure who's very surface, doesn't really get deep, overly playful, overly trivial, talks too much, or the communication between you and your father are not the best, or the patriarchal figures in your life are not the best. In the career, you might have a lot of overthinking happening in your career, a lot of anxiety, right? Mercury is the planet that most easily goes to neuroticism, overthinking. You might feel insecure about your abilities, or you feel like you constantly need to plan and organize things before you take action. And so that can hold you back from actually achieving as much as you possibly could achieve. Or you just might feel that in general, when you step out into the public field, you have to suppress your lightheartedness, your playfulness, your curiosity, your interest, because you have to do your duty, you have to take care of your material life, you have to take care of your responsibilities. And that can transition us back into the authority, right? So if it's healthy, Mercury, you use your intellect to gather information, and your authority is your intellect and your left brain thinking mind, linear thinking. And you communicate with other people, and so you're able to exchange information, and through that you are able to lead yourself and others. And also when it comes to material achievement, material success, you are able to utilize your Mercury, right? So you have the skills, you gather the information, you think, you follow your curiosities, you follow your interests, and it leads you towards material success. And you are a very skilled individual at achieving material success. But if it's afflicted, you don't feel able to achieve the material success you want because you feel like you can't develop the skills, you don't have enough information, you don't have the right information, you don't know how to communicate with others, right? Because to reach power and success and status and recognition, it's mostly about who you know. Obviously, skill matters to a certain degree, but as technology develops, because rapidly, we got AI, we got all these other tools that do a lot of the things for us. Your charisma and ability to communicate with others effectively is becoming more and more important, as more of these like drudgerous skills that would take decades to learn, more time to learn, are becoming automated. So as we move deeper into the technological age, the Mercury becomes more and more important of being able to compromise, make deals, interact, communicate, all mercurial things. And if you have an afflicted Mercury, then you might not be able to feel like you can do that. But that only means that you just need to focus on healing your Mercury and doing the things you need to learn to achieve the material success, and believing in yourself that you can gain the skills, gain the information, develop yourself, use your intellect and strategize and organize to succeed. Now we do Venus in the 10th house. So like I said, like the moon, Venus inherently is kind of behind a little bit in the 10th house. So Venus is obviously the diplomat, the partner, the pleaser, the relating aspect of oneself. Obviously on its face, you'd think, oh, well, it's good to, have a visible public image of being a diplomat. And that's true. So we'll start with the light manifestations of the physical parts of the 10th house. So Venus in the 10th, so the father can be quite graceful, can be aesthetically pleasing or understand aesthetics, have a natural grace to them, like I said before, but also the ability to stimulate your senses, right? Or patriarchal figures are able to provide a very sensorially pleasing and comforting environment. They're able to provide an environment that is structurally enjoying and structurally fulfilling is probably a better way of putting it. Structurally fulfilling. And out in the world, they may be a diplomat. They may be somebody who, trades or exchanges things in some way. A tradesman, a merchant, Libra, the scales, or somebody who's very resourceful. Usually the patriarchal figures, when Venus is doing well, can bring the material abundance and comforts and luxuries into your life. When it comes to career, you might work in fashion, you might work in art, something like artistry, or you might work yourself in trade. So like your father works in your trade and then you work with trading and things like that. Not a trade, but in trading, exchanging, aesthetics, art, creativity, beauty, nature, or working with women or the feminine in some way, because that's Venus represents women. Mars works with men. So Venus also is about relationships too. So you might be working with people. Same with the moon. It might be more like social work kind of fields or therapeutic kind of fields. The moon and Venus can have that, where you're working to help rejuvenate people or heal people. It can be Venus or the moon in the 10th house. And when it comes to your career, father, and recognition, you're recognized for your grace. You're recognized for your diplomacy, maybe your beautiful partners, or your ability to please others or stimulate their senses, right? Now, the shadow manifestation is somebody who might have a vain approach to their public facing figure or their public face, in the sense that, their image being beautiful is all that matters. The aesthetics are all that matters. Over reliance on taking action towards sustaining your material luxuries and external fulfillment, but neglecting your emotional world. This is kind of the similar thing with the moon in the 10th. You have Venus in the 10th, which is the feminine receptive part of your consciousness as well. And so somebody might be foregoing taking a rest, taking a break, which is more like going into your private life in the 4th house. Venus is constantly outside, trying to please other people. It really can manifest as you're overworking yourself and it's leading to burnout because you are trying to please others. And there can be a proneness to people pleasing and trying to make sure that everything is harmonized in the outside world. But the world is chaos, right? You can't harmonize everything. You can't make everything diplomatic. You can't make everything win-win, especially in the public sphere. That's why Venus is better in the 4th house, because Venus more naturally is able to control the home, your private life. It's easier, not easy, or not, not a done deal that you're just going to necessarily have a more harmonious, or you're going to have an inherently harmonious and diplomatic space at home. But it's a lot easier to make your own home elegant and beautiful and diplomatic and harmonious than the entire external world, right? The world out there, or your work and your job. You can't always keep the peace. Or Venus, especially if afflicted, might have a preoccupation and intense desire to make everything kosher, everything copacetic. And that's just not how life works. Life is messy. There's conflict. There's difficulties that arise, right? There's problems that need to be solved. That's why Mars and the Sun do so well. Strength of character, destiny, identity. The king, the warrior, general, pioneer out in the world, they can deal with the chaos that is inherent to living here on planet Earth. But Venus, more softer planet, inner child, Moon, the queen, they're more about nurturing and caring, and so they do better in the 4th. But they can still do good things in the 10th. It's just you have to be cognizant, you have to be mindful of overstretching yourself and not really focusing on the sensorial fulfillment of Venus, rejuvenating yourself, taking the time to rest, Venus, and also self-care and caring for the people you care about and having them take care of you, the moon. When it comes to the psychological manifestations, so your inner authority, it's going to be intuitive to a certain degree because Venus is a feminine planet, but it's about making the right choices, and making the right choices in the sense of you're choosing the things that are materially supportive or that support your material life, or you're able to exchange with other people. You're able to get win-win scenarios. And so your authority is pushing you towards win-win scenarios, having healthy relationships, harmonious relationship dynamics, things of that nature. And when you're working hard to create harmony. You're driven to create a beautiful environment, okay? You are driven to maintain your relationships and improve your relationships and connect with other people so you have more people to exchange with, to make sure that you have a wider pool of people that you can access or work with to get the things that you need in a material sense, Venus. Not an emotional sense, which is Moon, but a material sense, okay? But if it's afflicted, then there's too much focus on material. There could be too much focus on, networking for more vain surface level purposes. There might be a neglect, like I said before, of one's internal emotional life or private life because they're pleasing other people or because you think you need to work hard to make the world beautiful, the world harmonious. And so it's, again, easy to burn out. All these planets, there's going to be some proneness to burn out. Okay. Now we have Jupiter. Okay, so Jupiter brings fortune, luck, and expansion and abundance wherever it goes, for better or for worse. So the light manifestation of Jupiter in the 10th, naturally be a fortunate house. It can bring a lot of wisdom to your father figure. It could be a spiritual, philosophical father figure, patriarchal figure. I mean, the guru, the priest, the philosopher, the guide, right? You can have patriarchal figures that embody these roles, or the important patriarchal figures in your life are gurus, priests, philosophers, guides. And if Jupiter's doing well, the 10th house is doing well, then those figures are good and proper and healthy gurus, priests, philosophers, and guides. If Jupiter's afflicted, the 10th house isn't doing too well, well then obviously you get the opposite. You get charlatans, you get fakes, you get con men, things like that, or people who abuse their power and they place themselves on a spiritual or philosophical or ideological pedestal, and they're actually just fake. They're full of it. They're full of shit. I have a good friend who has Jupiter in the 10th house, but she has Rahu there, North Node there. And so that affliction creates a difficult time finding the right gurus for her. She finds herself constantly being attracted to gurus or public figures that are not in alignment with who she's supposed to be. And I've noticed that she can fall victim to that pretty easily. And so that's just kind of an example of the shadow manifestation. When it comes to career, obviously something that involving spirituality, something transcendent, maybe even in wealth management. Also, you could be somebody who's like a traveler or something that's expansive, but there can be a lot of luck in one's career because because Jupiter brings wisdom. Okay. And so you can be wise about what you're doing in your career. You might gain recognition for your spiritual abilities, for your wisdoms, for your teachings, for your own guidance, for yourself as a guru, priest, a philosopher, guide. It can make you one as well in your career or in the public space. All right. Obviously, the negative aspects is, ego aggrandizement. Spiritual ego is very prevalent with an afflicted Jupiter in the 10th house, or, overindulgence, like constantly needing more and more recognition, presenting oneself, like I said, as a guru philosopher, but not really embodying that. So you might know what to say, you might have the wisdom inherently, or you might have learned the right things, Jupiter, but you don't really embody it. So when you go home, you're a totally different person. It's kind of like just a public image you present to the world, but it's not really deeply landing with you. It's just an image you're projecting out there. And I think I've already said arrogance and optimism, over optimism in one's career. So you might go into a career field, you might, pursue something that might give you power and status, and you believe it's going to work out, and then it disappoints you. It's not everything that it's cracked up to be when you actually pursue it and manifest it or attempt to manifest it. But also can bring wealth too. It can bring wealth in your career because Jupiter rules money. So inherently, though, it could be pretty good placement on its face in a vacuum. For the psychological manifestations, right, you have the material action, material power. You also have authority. So the authority is obviously wisdom, spiritual teachings, philosophical teachings, higher order learning or transcendent concepts that are bigger than just the material realm. Also, your joy, your happiness, your positive emotions. Jupiter represents your joy, your happiness. And so that can be a good authority for you. You can be a very kind, generous authority figure, somebody who brings joy to other people, brings them wisdom. When it comes to gaining material security or gaining material success is actually a better word, not material security. That would be what house would that be? That's the material security is the second house. So my apologies. Material success and achievement. I'm tired. I'm sorry. I'm making a lot of mistakes in this video, but I'm pushing through for you guys. to give you the content, give you the knowledge. So bear with me. My apologies. So Jupiter in the 10th, like I said, somebody who has a lot of luck and fortune and has a lot of abundance on their path to achieving that status and power and working hard. And as they work harder, they get more luck. And as they get more luck and wisdom and understanding, they work harder. And it's kind of like this beautiful feedback loop that leads to a lot of abundance and a lot of recognition and a lot of positive feedback. Okay? But if Jupiter is afflicted, then yeah, I mean, you could have somebody who overdoes it because they're overly optimistic. They think everything's going to be the best. And so they're working really hard. And then they end up at the end of the road and they get burnt out because the juice wasn't worth the squeeze, or what they thought. Or their inner authority, they are arrogant and they think they know it all and they think they have it all figured out. Or they learn from somebody who might not have been as genuine and truthful and wise as they had thought. And so they guide other people astray in their career. Okay? So Jupiter can cause problems in the 10th. Don't get it twisted. But Jupiter naturally is great position, great graha planet in the 10th house. Saturn actually does well here too. Believe it or not, I know. You would not think Saturn be causing problems, but Saturn actually in the 10th, pretty decent. Saturn is a servant, Saturn is the elderly, it's the authoritarian, and it's the shadow. So in regards to one's father or patriarchal figures, they can be quite disciplined, they can be quite stoic, they can be quite authoritarian and traditional, but these things can be healthy as long as the father is healthy. So if Saturn's doing well, or that 25% free will, you got that little extra sauce, that little extra space for God, the universe, probability to do its thing, it's doing well. Well, then you have a father that instills traditional values, who takes a minimalistic approach, avoids distractions, avoid hedonism. You have somebody who focuses on what really matters and takes a realistic approach to life. And so that can be instilled in you. And so when you pursue a career, right, you're disciplined. You focus on what matters. You cut away the bullshit, Saturn, right? Cut away things that don't matter to you. You are reserved and hardworking because Saturn is about discipline and restrictions, but restrictions to achieve something, to achieve your destiny, which is the sun. The sun is all the actions you're supposed to take to fulfill your destiny, to build your kingdom, to be the king of your life, to be the main character, the sun. Saturn is everything that will get in the way. And so you have a healthy Saturn, you use your time wisely in your career, you avoid all the pitfalls, you avoid anything that could trip you up, and you move along your path with patience and resilience. And when it comes to your recognition or the public face that you present, and what people know you for, they know you for being disciplined, they know you for being stoic, and having yourself in control, being self-controlled, being self-willed, being traditional, maintaining traditions and making sure that things are moving in the way they're supposed to be moving and not being overly impulsive like maybe Mars can be sometimes, or even the moon or Venus or Mercury, kind of more so moving in a fickle way or more transient way. But Saturn's like, no, we're got to do things the right way. Got to take our time, be patient, resilient, and not put the cart before the horse. Saturn can do really well here. Or if it's a shadow manifestation, you guys Saturn afflicted, you could lose the father early or not have patriarchal figures in your life, or they're limited, the patriarchal figures in your life, they're restricted in some way, they're overly authoritarian. They may hold you back and restrict you from doing the things you want or that might bring you joy. They might be too realistic in the sense that they kind of stamp out your dreams, these patriarchal figures, before they even get going. And they say, no, we have to do this. This is the way things are done. This is tradition. You have to do this because your father was this, or your mother, or your older brother, things like that, Could have some legacy problems going on there, or just have trauma and fear and self-doubt because of the patriarchal figures, or in your inner masculine, because Saturn represents trauma, fears, and doubts and insecurities, right? So it can cause problems too. And these problems, these insecurities can be very visible if Saturn's not doing well. People will see it. It's the image you will project. They will see you as more reserved. They will see you as insecure, self-doubt, traumatized in certain ways that you project onto the outside world, and people can kind of see it more clearly because 10th house is so visible. So you kind of wear your wounds on your sleeve, which can be good or bad depending on how you maneuver those wounds and how you present yourself in the face of those wounds and insecurities and self-doubts and fears and trauma. And then when it comes to career, there can be restrictions on your career. You might feel like you didn't get to try everything you wanted to. I have a former client who had few planets in the 10th house, and Saturn was one of them. And she felt like because she had a child early in life that she felt like she was restricted in her ability to actually pursue the things she was most passionate about, which was physics. And so she ended up doing business because it was the more safe option and because it would take less time and because she had a kid at the time. So, this person was like, oh, I wanted to do physics. I want to do something that might have taken more schooling and might not have would have paid itself off quickly or as quickly because I needed to take care of my child, because I needed to be responsible and take care of my responsibilities, which are the 10th house. And Saturn is it's the responsible graha, the responsible planet. So it is aligned and can make somebody very responsible as well, and somebody who makes sure to take care of all of their responsibilities. But it also can make somebody feel restricted and like they didn't really get to pursue all of the things that they wanted to pursue in the public sphere in their career. Or Mercury in the 10th house will have usually a lot less problems there, unless it's with Saturn or with the North Node Rahu. And from a psychological standpoint, positive manifestation, like I said, somebody who's really hardworking, has that grit, has that resilience, that dog in them, got that dog in them, where they're just one step in front of the other, that rocky energy to take the beatings and take anything that stands in the way from being everything they can be in a material sense and achieving the material power and status that they want. Somebody can really hang in there for a long period of time. And also when it comes to being an authority figure, they are restrained, they're disciplined, they are self-controlled, they discipline themselves, they avoid things that would stand in the way. And so people can trust them because they know they have their shit together. They're able to control and be an authority figure for themselves. So I can trust them to be an authority figure and leader for me as well, because they're self-controlled. I trust them to help control my path as well. But if Saturn's afflicted, you have self-doubts, you have fears, you feel like you can't really go for it fully because you think something bad's going to happen or because of something that happened before that makes you insecure and doubt yourself. You have some deep scars, or you're overly authoritarian, overly strict on yourself and other people. An intense inner critic can manifest. Saturn can cause some severe problems when it comes to your ability to be an authority figure for yourself and other people and also achieve the material success and power and status you actually want. And you're probably going to get, like I said, you're going to get a mixture of all the positive and negative things I said about these planets in the 10th house if you have them there. Because people are not a monolith. There's a smorgasbord. It's a collage. It's an energetic tapestry of different things happening in this astrological chart. Okay? So that was all the planets in the 10th house. As I let you know before, this is a series. So if you want to see the next video and continue getting free courses in astrology and the occult sciences, subscribe to this channel. In the next video, we're doing all of the planets in the 11th house. I know, shocker, right? Because we're going in order. And I'm excited for this video because I love the 11th house. It's a very important house to me specifically. And I will see you then. And also, if you have any questions or you want to share your experiences and you resonate with anything, please comment down below and I will reply. I always do. Cheers.